Welcome to the InfoMullet YouTube channel. If you enjoy this content, please like or share. And if you'd like to support the InfoMullet by becoming a Mulleteer, visit us on Patreon. We appreciate your support. This is the InfoMullet page. If you go there today, the top pinned post is our tracking. Jerry did a lot of work over the weekend. I want to give him another shout out. All our apps, we have over 12 applications now that track all this stuff for COVID-19. You can see states, hospitalization rates, remaining hospital beds. This is a new one we're going to go into. You can do comparisons by states. We also have global stats. It has all the methodology and how we calculate this and all the fancy stuff there. But what I wanted to show was this is one of the new features we've added is we now track statewide and at the national level the available of hospital beds and ICU beds remaining, so we can track this capacity. So you think about, yes, we have this growing outbreak. We got 45, 50,000 cases a day, but we're only seeing 300 deaths. Why is that? It's because there's still capacity in the hospital system for treating those cases. And this is the US overall. And this is a primary chart where you can pull up any state and you'll see to clear the chart, because this is the percent of beds free or patients. And so this lower line here, these are the suspected COVID patients in any one entity. So this is US, about a little less than 10, getting back up 5%. So probably 6% of all patients nationwide right now are suspected of being COVID-19. Up at the top here, you see these two lines. This is, the blue is hospital beds, just any bed whatsoever. The green is ICU bed, and this is the percent capacity remaining. So think of this as the free percent. If you had no patients in the hospital, this would be up at 100%. If you had no beds left, this would be at 0%. And what you see is nationwide, and it goes back every 60 days. This is coming from the CDC. They update 3 times a week, so it's fairly accurate, but it is an estimate. If you actually look at the CDC data, they have a 95% confidence limit on either side. We didn't include those for clarity. This is the midpoint. But you see this general decline in capacity, and it's got this same oscillating behavior here, which is the weekend pattern that you'll see in the deaths, and that there's there tends to be this regular oscillation in hospital usage. But you can pull up any state. So I'm going to pull up Arizona here, and you can see Arizona was, in May, they were doing fine. They had 60%, it's almost off the charts, literally, 60% ICU bed availability, 45% hospital bed availability, and under, they were at 7%, 6 or 7% COVID patients. But you can see as wave 1.5 came into Arizona and increased, remember, they're at that exploding rate, and they're at, I think, 20% positive test rate. If this was just, well, we're testing more, so more people are infected, it's not really a big deal. You wouldn't see the hospitalization increase, but look at what happens. Hospitalization rate is increasing. It is now nearly 20% of all patients in Arizona are COVID-19, and what that does is it is dragging down the available capacity of hospital beds and ICU beds. And you can see this very clearly here as it's declining, and you can see that the ICU was much higher, and now it's dropping, which reflects kind of the severe nature sometimes of COVID. And now ICU actually has less capacity than the hospital beds. And you can look at states that have been through this. Let's bring up New York. New York's the opposite. You see New York here. Remember, they had their super cluster in late March and April. They actually are increasing capacity in their ICU beds as their COVID patients go down. So unfortunately, the data for the CDC doesn't go back into the height of the super cluster in late March and April, but you can kind of get a feel of what wrong looks like. New York is coming out of that super cluster. They're over 20% patients. They have they probably had closer to 25% capacity, and they are steadily growing out of it. Now, they flatlined in the hospital beds, which is normal. You're going to have a normal amount. But the ICU beds, the surplus, that shows that their patients are decreasing, their ICU bed surplus is decreasing. That's good. You can do this for any state. You can pull up any state on this and do it. But you can also pull up comparisons. So here's New Jersey and New York as a percent of inpatients suspected or confirmed with COVID. Again, it goes back to May, and you can see they're declining here from a height. Now, New Jersey, it was later, so this is actually closer to the center mass of their supercluster. They were over 33%. What you can do, because these are comparison charts, is you can add California, Florida, and Texas, which are the 3 most populous states in the nation. New York's the 4th. And you can see here, this is why this disconnect over wave 1.5 formed, right? California, Florida, and Texas are all at very low patient amounts, and they're now increasing. And you've had this cross that occurs at sort of mid-June here, and they're now rising up to about 10%. They're not. This is statewide, and so this is somewhat. Don't get confused. There's some counties in Texas that are much worse than this, and some that will be much better. But the average is 10%. Remember, in the supercluster phase, we were at 20% patients, and we're heading that way gradually. You can also look at here is the hospital beds that are free, and again, you've got New York and New Jersey. You can add California, Florida, Texas, and you can see there's a gradual decline with some sharp decreases here over time. But and this is for just hospital beds in general. But again, ICU beds is the key. So let's look at ICU bed comparisons. New York, New Jersey, again, you see that increasing capacity as they come out of their supercluster. Their wave is behind them. Pull up California, Florida, and Texas, and you can start to see that decline. Here's Texas, 46% 2 months ago, now down to about 35%. So it's dropped 10%. This is, again, statewide. There are certain states, or certain counties in Texas that are already at capacity or getting close to it. I think Houston, the county Houston's in close. Los Angeles County is getting very close. Thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to follow the InfoMullet, visit us on Facebook or Twitter. And if you'd like notifications when we post new video content, click on the red subscribe button below the video. If you've ever wanted to become a mulleteer and support the InfoMullet, visit us on Patreon. We appreciate the support.